Well, we're here to review the first test, or rather the first day of the only test between India and Australia. It's happening at Wankhede. Finally, Wankhede is also getting to see a test match, something that we don't really talk enough about because DY Patil hosted the last test. I'm not really sure when was the last time India even hosted a test. There we've got Neha, Shetty, and of course she also informed me just before we started, just before we went live, that Australia is playing a test match in India after 40 years. That's ridiculous. I mean, I can't even imagine something like that happening in men's cricket. Like it's crazy. Hello, Neha. Welcome. How was the day? How was your day? How was the test match? Let's probably start with you first.
Hi, Akshay. It's amazing to be here. And it's been a wonderful day, right, of Test cricket. And in a span of 15 days, we see India square off against England and Australia now. So, certainly exciting times. And the match, too, right, has gone so much in our favor. So, yeah, a lot of talking points.
Definitely. I mean, first of all, it's not often that we get to see two back-to-back test matches, but it's also sort of weird that, we're playing against two different teams in such a short span. We're like playing two test matches against two different teams in less than a week. But yeah, let's just sort of get straight into the game today. Fantastic start, especially after losing the toss. I, for one, did not really think, India will sort of end up restricting Australia to such a small score, 219, especially given the kind of batting depth they have. And I mean, they've got someone like a Kim Garth coming in at number 10, who's played at number 4, number 5, number 6 for Ireland. So that's just crazy. But let's begin with that. First of all, Phoebe Litchfield's diamond duck. I mean, no one saw that coming in the first over.
I think it had to be one of the most delightful starts, right? Now, look, we restricted Australia to 219, which is apparently their lowest score in, versus India in Test cricket. And the kind of start we got, you get Phoebe Litchfield run out on a diamond duck. And, Ellie Perry comes in, scores a boundary, and then we get her out the very next ball. Pooja Vastrakar is all, celebrating, and you could see the vibe and everything that's going on. Yet, Australia being Australia, you still had Beth Mooney and, Talia Megra come to the party, score those big runs. Lisa Healy came in, but eventually you could see that collapse and how, they were feeling the pressure. But all in all, I think, the way India really bowled through the day, Pooja Vastrakar with her 4 wickets, you had Sneh Rana too, right? With her 3 wickets. I mean, she would have gotten a lot more had India been a little more, better on the field today. But I think that's the only thing I can nitpick. But besides that, I think it has been one of those days where we could really quieten the Aussie batting that's known to produce miracles in Test cricket.
I mean, definitely, there's a lot. There's lots to talk about. There's lots to nitpick. But yeah, I mean, slightly choppy internet once again. Hopefully, we'll get that sorted as well ASAP. You mentioned a couple of names there. You mentioned a couple of partnerships. Again, Beth Mooney. She played fantastically, of course. No two questions about it. But her wicket in particular, that was some wicket, man. Because again, it's not often you see an Indian bowler rush an Australian batter, especially at a surface like that, like that was off,
Yeah.
that was on offer at the Wankhede. It's not like this was the bounciest of surfaces, but Vastrakar really managed to rush her there. And boy, like it was just crazy to see something like that happen because it's not often. We always see this happen the other way around. We see our batters sort of tend to struggle, against the pace and bounce of opponents, of opposition's bowlers and all of that. That was great to watch. And you mentioned the partnership, of course, between Beth Mooney and Talia Migra. Again, speaks volumes about the kind of depth Australia have because just you look at the 11, they've got batters throughout, they've got bowlers throughout. Given this how significant it was, something like this 219, you clearly mentioned that this was the lowest score Australia have been restricted to in Test cricket against India. How significant was that, especially coming from someone, especially given the performance by someone like a Pooja Vastrakar?
I think it's definitely good to see, Pooja Vastrakar come to form because we've seen how in 2022 injuries really took a toll on her. We saw her sideline for such a long period of time. She was that X factor, right? India needed that all-rounder, someone who can give you that express pace and can be the finisher for you as well. And now seeing her, in that England Test match, consistently performing and bringing that momentum onto the Australia Test match was certainly quite, positive. And even the manner in which she bamboozled some of your best batters, right? You have Beth Mooney, who was dismissed by her, Ellie Perry dismissed by her. So it was just, remarkable sights to see how she's able to get the most out of the surface. And she has time and again proven, when she comes back from injury, she's an entirely different cricketer. And I think think it is matches like this that gives us that reassurance and reinforcement, right? That she is here to stay. And I think we just need to see a lot of her in test matches.
True, and you mentioned something about Vastrakar and the way she bowled today. Like, what was really on display in terms of bowling was the ability for her to extract that seam movement both ways. And we saw Elise Perry, of course, get that Jaffa. But in general, she was able to consistently hit those good lengths, those 4 meter to 6 meter good lengths, and managed to get the ball away from the right hander into the right hand. And that's probably what caused so much concern and so much sort of confusion amongst the Australian batters. And given this and knowing how the surface eventually played, something like that is always going to be handy. And it also sort of goes on to show that, the more tests that our side plays, the more they also sort of get used to it, the more they understand how the red ball plays, the more they understand how to bowl, what to bowl. Unfortunately, yeah, let's hope BCCI is listening to this. Let's hope they get to play more test matches, man, because it's only great to watch. That's for sure. But of course, let's also move on to the other bowler, Sneha Rana. Again, fantastic bowling, man. I just love watching her bowl, especially in Test cricket. Again, my mind goes back to that 2021 Test where she, of course, performed with the bat, and that's what we remember her for. But not to forget, she was also equally good with the ball. Once again today, how good, man! Like the old school flighted bowling. There was also a bit of defensive bowling in terms of when towards the end, Jess Jonathan seemed to be threatening. She still knew how to sort of target batters, how to attack them, when to go defensive. Happy with how she's also been doing with the red ball.
Absolutely, because even with Sneh Rana, the inconsistencies with the management, with respect to how she's played across formats, has been quite disappointing, right? She's just dropped. There's no explanation given. So it's like every single opportunity she is given, she has to make the most of it. And we've seen it again in the England series. She was so good, and carrying that form onto the Australia series. Really again getting the most out of the surface, and that confidence, to ensure that you can read the batter's mind and get those wickets. I think that has been super impressive. And even with how there was a time when she could have gotten Beth Mooney's wicket, but India didn't go with that review, and we saw a few dropped catches here and there, which was quite unfortunate. Yet she kept her head up and managed to get 3 wickets, which was quite impressive. And even though this mismanagement is like a big concern and talking point, I feel like she every time makes a point when she comes out there, which is impressive. And the mindset she has, of really understanding the commands from her skipper and just executing it to perfection every single time. She's an absolute delight and a pleasure to have in any team, especially tests, right?
100%. And given that she'll be batting as low as number 7, number 8, that only sort of bodes well for the side, because for someone who personally loves batting depth in my unit, it's good to see that we have batting till the end. And unlike the men's side of things where it's like we've got 7 fantastic batters and that's it, we've got 4 number 11s coming in. Not to be the case with India, and I mean with the women's side, and I really hope that continues to be the case. But again, if we talk about Australia's batting, of course, yeah, today might not be the brightest day, out
Yeah.
there, which is fine. Everyone has a one-off. But knowing how India have started off now, what are you expecting from them? Because again, India had a fantastic, game against England just last week. I mean, just less than 4 days ago, to be honest. We can't even call that last week. What are you expecting from them? How do you see this game pan out? And what do you think is the ideal way for India to sort of go about in this game?
Okay, so to answer the first part of your question, like with respect to Australia's batting as well, I expected a lot from them, right? Because see, they were coming into the series, they had that practice match against Mumbai, which was like a 1 day match, where it was a red ball game. They were getting used to the conditions and all that. So I expected a little better of them to, apply themselves to these conditions, considering they've played against the Indians so much. So it was quite a letdown their batting, and 219 is not a very great total. When you think of the Aussie standard of things. Now, with respect to India, I thought again, I think the Aussies will really put them under pressure with the batting. But Smriti Mandana and Shefali Verma were batting like it was a whole different surface. It was like T20 mode unleashed. We will do this. We will give you that exhibition of Women's Premier League even before it starts. Man, what a start, right? Because we thought it'll be a slow start, and then all the Aussies will try to bring in whatever they can to quieten this duo. But no, they were really good. And I think like till Shefali Verma got out, even when she got out, she was just so disappointed because she knew that had she stayed there, it was going to be that big knock. Because we've seen lately, how she's gotten those starts, not been able to capitalize it. And with that left right combination she forms with Smriti Mandana at the top of the order, I think they both they just really complement each other together. Just staying a little longer at the crease, I think we would have seen a very big total. So I think India will, look to bat obviously a little longer now. Sneh Rana has come, as the night watch woman. I'd say watch player. Okay, yeah, watch woman. So it's going to be interesting. I think she's going to, try to bring her A game front, just get those quick runs. And then we see how the batting unfolds. But India is definitely looking at a big total because the surface is playing according to their wishes. So I'm just very excited for tomorrow's day of play. It's going to dictate a lot in terms of how the match, kind of unfolds.
True, but again, in all fairness, if you look at how this Indian side bats, we also know that they themselves struggle against spin. It's usually that is not expected from them because we think, okay, sides from the subcontinent, from the Indian subcontinent, they're supposed to be good players of spin. It's just assumed. But we've seen that in the Bangladesh series as well. We saw it in the past in the first test as well. And today as well, you saw that like 19 overs, 98 for one. Of course, at the surface level, it probably looks like, okay, you know what, we've done really well. We're scoring in excess of 5 runs per over. Great. But if we sort of dig a bit deeper, we sort of zoom a bit in, we see, okay, you know what, against pace, we've scored 77 runs in 12 overs. Against spin, they've managed to score just 12 runs in 7 overs. So once again, Jess Johnson, Ashley Gardner, both of them were able to sort of tie both of them down. Now, how much of it had to do, I mean, at least according to you, how much of it do you think had to do with that probably being the fag end of the day? Both of them wanted to preserve their wickets, so that's why they decided to sort of be a bit more defensive. Do you think that played a role, or do you think, we have to credit the Australian spinners for being really good today?
See, Akshay, I think it's about the mindset, honestly, because I think, as you rightly pointed out, it was the fag end of the day. They wanted to preserve their wickets. So you play to your strengths, right? You want to make the most of the paces, you score runs off of them. And when you compare, I mean, I don't know if this comparison makes sense, but when you look at England and Australia, Australia clearly has the better spinners, right? They have a three-prong spin attack with Jess Johnson, Ashley Gardner, and Alana King, who's not yet been unleashed. So that's going to be interesting and another contest to watch out for with these batters. But Australia definitely did, come up with those mind games, especially in the last part. I mean, eventually, like Shafali Verma did fall to Jess Johnson, right? That LBW, and thank God they didn't review it and waste that review. But I think we have to laud Australia for, bringing in that strategy as well. But I think this was a clear case of India just playing to their strengths, right? Because the Pacers were really not getting their lengths right. You could see how Ellis Perry was just not getting it right. I mean, you could see that frustration as well. So somewhere I think India was just trying to make the most of the conditions, and yeah, Australia was just giving it away like at the initial part. But later when they started understanding, hey, let's unleash our spinners and see where the game goes, I think that's where things got interesting. Perhaps something they will try to exploit tomorrow as well.
True, I mean, like you rightly mentioned, Alana King's yet to sort of get a ball, yet to roll her arm over. Do you think it'd be fair to assume that probably we can see like 60, 70 overs of spin tomorrow? Like Australia just sort of going all spin, going for an all spin attack tomorrow, just see spinners sort of left, right, and center. And if that is going to be the case, do you think India have it in them to be able to sort of tackle something like that?
I think that's an interesting question. Would Australia go with something like that? Definitely, because they play that brand of cricket, win at all costs. And even Alisa Healy, we know the kind of skipper she's, wears her heart on the sleeve, will just go all out with strategies like that. But I don't think that will suffocate the Indian batters as much as we think, because they're used to playing in conditions like this at home. Maybe in Bangladesh, they have their moments where they suffer, but at home, these are conditions they are familiar with, right? And I still believe that they can, manage and get their way around. You still have the likes of Jemima Rodriguez, like Mumbai is her home turf. You have Harmanpreet Kaur, you have Yastika Bhatia. You see, right, the batting is still very deep. And I believe Smriti Mandana might get that big total, because remember the last time around when India and Australia squared off against each other, she scored that daddy 100, that 127, brilliant stuff. So I feel like she really can put up a big total, and she's one of your finest players of spin as well, except the time she gets out to off spin, which is a discussion for another day and the podcast in itself. But yes, I'm still optimistic that we can do this.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And in all fairness, to be honest, I'm trying to keep my, RCB fandom aside and all of that. I'll have to say Jemmy is probably the only player of spin, let alone good bats. He's probably the only player of spin, according to me, in this current Indian lineup. And we saw how India struggled even in that England T20I series, where, Sophie Eccleston, Charlie Dean just played the last T20. I'm forgetting who were the other spinners, but theek everyone struggled. Everyone just struggled. They really they weren't able to find the gaps. Finally, in the third T20, we did see sort of Smithy take on Eccleston. But again, that was a positive matchup. It did make sense for her to do. Now that won't be the case. They've got someone like an Ashley Gardner who can take it away from Smithy. They've also got someone like an Alana King, of course, who can,
Oh
like,
yeah.
it is spinner. We cannot really stress enough about the kind of value they bring in. And Jess Jonathan, again, just because she's a slow left armer, again, she is a fantastic bowler in her own right. I don't think they need matchups to sort of not bowl her or bowl her. Given this, don't you think it's going to be slightly tricky? Because again, you mentioned the names of Harman. There's also Richa Ghosh. There's Deepti Sharma. There's Yastika Bhatia, who again had a fantastic 60 odd in the game against England. Sure, all of this will happen, but do you think India will be able to surpass, Australia's score, say by the end of the second session tomorrow?
I believe yes, because right now we are at 98 for 1 at the end of 19 overs. And I still feel, they will look to get score runs at a quick pace before, the pitch starts deteriorating, those cracks come and, it just gets impossible to play on that surface. And before, Australia can actually get used to those conditions. So I believe they will look to, score at least in excess of maybe 250, 260. So at least you have something in your first innings, and then when Australia comes to bat again, you try to get them out early. You get in Deepti Sharma, Sneh Rana, and just try to get those early wickets. Pooja Vastrakar is of course going to be that crucial cog. You have Renuka from the other end, so things are looking good at least on that front. But I think India will look to get to that total of 250, 260. Australia will give a tough fight, no doubt. It's going to be a big litmus test of sorts for our batters. But yeah, quite a mouth-watering competition, right?
Oops, almost spoke on mute there. Something that we tend to avoid because we love having a laugh at each other whenever we do that. But definitely a mouth-watering contest and definitely a contest to look out for. But just again, going back to how the first innings panned out, we spoke about, Pooja Vastrakar was good. Of course, Sneh Rana was good. Rajeshwari Gaikwad also, again, might not have been amongst the wickets, but again, was able to sort of come up with those defensive lines, was very economical, and that sort of helped bowlers from the other end to take those wickets. Deepti Sharma being Deepti Sharma, I mean, I don't think we have to talk much about that. But Australia's batting, given how they structure, given how they sort of, play, and you mentioned Elisa Healy and her aggressive style of captaincy, her aggressive style of batsmanship. Do you think, I mean, they fell short, or, sorry, not do you think they fell short? Where do you think they fell short? Like, everyone, pretty much everyone, all of them got starts. Like, if I look at the scorecard, barring that Phoebe Litchfield dismissal, and of course, Elise, everyone else was able to play more than 30 balls. Everyone else was able to sort of get into those double figures, which is necessary to sort of, calm yourself down, calm those nerves, get used to the surface and all of that. Despite this, we didn't see a lot of them, converting it into bigger numbers. We just saw 150. That was Talia Migrant. She was out, way back in the day. I mean, way early on in the day. How do you think, I mean, what do you think went wrong for them today?
I think again we can attribute this to how most of the batters got the starts. But here I think you also got to appreciate the captaincy of Harmanpreet Kaur, right? She was able to bring in those bowlers to extract the most out of the surface, put pressure on the Aussie batters, just not let them settle. Now, although Talia Meghna was like, she got the fastest 50, in that 52 balls, which is an Aussie record again. She was really good. But again, she wasn't looking like her settled self, and we saw how the Indian bowlers were just throwing all like everything at her. And I also like we've seen how Australia is a team that's blessed with an abundance of all-rounders, but that really didn't come across today because they really didn't see an inspired Indian side, pulling this off. And I think another point that we should really talk about is how this series, right? It's not going to be a multi-format series. Like each of the like formats are going to be looked at in isolation. So that is another thing. And Alisa Heidi said that I thought India will just walk away with 4 points. So somewhere I also think that Australia knows they're not going to win, but they still want to put up a good fight. But I couldn't really see that today. But that's because they just didn't apply themselves enough. I thought, the practice match would definitely help them. And this is not coming from a biased Indian POV, because if you're getting those starts, your initial batters are getting those starts, why are the seniors not stepping up, right? Again, it's a very small sample size because it's just the first innings, and it's sad that we don't get an entire, 3-match series to talk about, assess performances and everything. But from at least what we have seen, it's just that, the lack of application that really costed them, and even the early wickets, right? At no stage having a score line of like what 7 for 2 is going to do you a world of good. It's going to put pressure on the batters who are coming next. But also due credit to how there was a late flourish, right? You had Jess Jonathan and Kim Garth give you that thing. They were at what 166 for 8 to push them to 200. I think that was still quite commendable in that sense. So Australia's never die attitude is amazing, but today I think it was just like lack of application and early wickets that costed them.
True. I mean, when they sort of lost that eighth wicket, if I'm not wrong, it was Alana King. I remember telling my colleague, "अरे attention मत ले, 200 तो ये पहुंच ही जाएंगे." Like that's the bare minimum they're playing with. उनके लिए वही है. That's the starting point, and from there, how much they get more, that's yet to be seen. But again, you mentioned how Australian batters did not really apply themselves. If the Indian batters were to sort of take a leaf out of how the first innings panned out, and how, having seen how the Australian batters played, what are you expecting from them? How do you want them to play tomorrow? Because again, the surface is only going to deteriorate. It's only going to get tougher for them, especially against spinners. So knowing this, what do you think? How should their mode of play be tomorrow?
I think tomorrow India can, adopt this sort of play where you start slow. You don't have to start all aggressive and, try to get those quick runs and just, put that pressure immediately on Australia. Try to understand the conditions, see what Australia is throwing at you. Is it going to be a lot of spin? Is it going to be a lot of pace? And how is that going to pan out? Based on that, you take, your decision. I still feel Sneh Rana can play that attacking brand of cricket because she has nothing to lose, and we still have a lot of batting that is left. And India will look, to get to that 250, 260 mark that we have discussed. So I think they should start slow and then, try to make the most of the conditions. Try to bat out at least 2 sessions, if not like the entire day, because that is, quite frankly, a little unrealistic. But, those 2 sessions are going to be very important, and not losing those early wickets. I want to see those big partnerships, and perhaps, even a century from Smriti Mandana that could actually do India a world of good and set them up well in this match.
Interesting. I mean, we can never really be sort of, too keen on seeing a Smriti Mandana century. You also mentioned that fantastic 127. That was in Carrera Oval or Carrera Oval. I'm pretty sure I'm getting the pronunciation wrong. That was also way back in 2021. So yeah, let's hope that's something we can look forward to. Santa D. Cruz, meanwhile, he asks us, how good is Amol Mazumdar for this side? He's bought a game changer attitude amongst the women in white. See, acceleration with maturity and not blindly hitting out is new to watch for this side. Again, the thing is, the sample size is really small to sort of take something out of it. He's only two test matches old that way, and it's not like India have played plenty of test matches in the recent past. But even then, taking all things into consideration, are you happy with what you've seen so far of Amol Mazumdar as the head coach of the Indian team?
Absolutely. He was, kind of coach we really needed in the team. He has instilled that sense of, fearlessness and courage in the girls that we really needed. Not that the past coaches didn't do, but, you saw how things were mired in controversy, very like unnecessary stuff. With him, there's a clear mindset. He's a very experienced player. Having played in the domestic setup, he knows the players up close and personal. And Akshay, you won't believe this, on social media, people have already started calling him the Amol era, like Amol ball era, like, how you have Bass ball sort of thing, because they believe he can foster that kind of change in the girls, have that change in mentality as well. Because somewhere with, Mithali Raj as the skipper back then, they felt, we were always like the meek side, we always take a back foot. But here, you're just always on the front foot, trying to make the most of the conditions, be like, go no, just look Australia in the eye and be like, hey, we are those fierce competitors. We're not just here to bag the second place and go away. So I feel with him in the side and his support staff as well, I genuinely believe it was a great thing to have him on board. I hope BCCI doesn't do BCCI things and just he vanishes out of contention after a few poor like series or matches or something. I hope he gets a long run. But right now, I think the results are for everyone to see, and his fan base also agrees.
I mean, this could really be in a very, I mean, sort of weird way. This could sort of be his Kabir Khan moment of if people sort of understand the reference. That'd be great. But yeah, the Indian women's team has not really, had the greatest of luck when it comes to coaches. My mind goes back to, the likes of Ramesh Pawar, Tushar Arothe. There's also W.V. Raman. Again, it's not that the coaches themselves were probably bad or good. Like, I'm not here to sort of dish out opinions on that at least, because yeah, that's sort of better left
That's true.
unanswered by someone like me. We don't know what happens behind the scenes. We don't know what happens in the dressing room. But yeah, Amol Mazumdar has really brought in that sense of calm, that I'll have to admit. And that's something that sort of also used to come to the fore whenever we heard him, be it his commentary stints or be it whenever outside, whenever you heard him, you always felt that he's someone who was assured of himself, who knew what needs to be done and who knew how it needs to be done. And of course, he is a Ranji Trophy legend. He's a domestic cricket legend. So, yeah, we can only wish good things from him. But again, I'll also have to admit I was slightly skeptical because I'll have to go back to that India England T20 series and the press conference that happened right before the series, where he'd mentioned, we will the key will be, or rather, the focus will be on showing more intent, on sort of being better at fielding. Of course, good things take
Yeah.
time. We'll have to sort of hope that eventually we're able to set up a system, set up a process where the Indian team sort of improves its fielding. Something again that came to the fore today as well, like the drop catches. Don't you think it gets to you? Because especially as a fan, of course, yeah, but even as a bowler, it sort of demotivates you, demoralizes you, right?
Absolutely. Fielding has been a long-standing concern for us, we've seen time and again how we have lost matches because of that. And it's, cricket is all about those small moments and, making the most of it. And how we have often, fallen short of that. But I genuinely believe that we are taking baby steps in the right direction. Like, I think today you might have seen Smriti Mandana's, like, the catch she took, going backwards. Like, that was a good catch. We'll have to give it to her. And even like before, we always had concerns with wicket keepers. Right now, we see we have like a good stock of wicket keepers. You have Yastika Bhatia, you have Richa Ghosh, you have Sushma Verma, you have Tanya Bhatia. You have so many reserves as well, right, in your domestic circuit as well. So somewhere I feel that although we may not see like immediate results, we still have like good options, and something good is building up. But this fielding concern is something that I hope will get sorted with our new coach. And yeah, just fingers crossed and just hope for the best, honestly.
No, that's true. And you mentioned those, that the array of keepers we have to choose from, Tanya Bhatia, Yasaka Bhatia, Richa Ghosh. Richa Ghosh, again, playing today, debuting for India today. And I don't know, it was a bit of a bittersweet feeling for me because I thoroughly enjoyed watching Shubha Satheesh bat the way she did in the test against England. Oh my goodness. I was like, geez, where has she really been? Like, why haven't we seen enough of her before? Because again, the only time I heard Shubha Satheesh was, of course, during the WPL auction where we saw RCB bid. We were all there in the studio. We saw RCB place that bid, and I was like, wait, she has a strike rate of 74 in T20s. What am I missing here? And clearly, I was missing a whole lot of things there because fantastic knock that day. Unfortunately, had a hairline fracture. Something we still don't know. How did it exactly happen? Absolutely no clue. Did it happen while she was eating her food? The plate slipped? We don't know. Did it happen because she fell in the bathroom? We don't know. Did it happen while fielding? Absolutely no clue. Like, it's bizarre that a player that represents your nation has been injured, is not featuring because of an injury, and we have absolutely no clue about why
No
she's
idea.
injured, where she got an injury. But how happy were you seeing that? I mean, I know it's not from this test match, but I don't think I've been this excited seeing a debutant, to be honest, or seeing a newcomer.
Absolutely. I mean, it was very heartening to, see her have the kind of performance she did, because she has been a consistent performer in the domestic circuit, right? And, seeing her finally own the center stage, not just be in the center stage, but actually own the center stage was just beautiful. The way she dominated the proceedings and the context, right? These are stories that often just go unnoticed. But I think it was a great debut for her to see. And also the point you bring in of, her injury that we have no idea about, it just goes to show how the communication, from the apex body has been very poor. Just, mincing my words there. But I really believe they can do better on that front, because even like a day before this Australia test started, I think Troy Cooley mentioned he just wasn't giving anything away. He was like, yes, she's injured. We're looking at an option. And then I was just seeing like social media of how Priya Punia was called in and she was, donning the test whites. There was like photo ops and everything. I was like, okay, so I'm just going to put two and two together that she has been called in as a reserve because Shubha Satheesh is injured. She might, actually get a go in. No confirmation whatsoever. Harmanpreet Kaur is not giving it away. Like, let's not put out our playing 11 or anything before the day's play begins. But good to see Richa, make her debut. I think she is that perfect wicket keep option for you. Offers a lot with the bat as well. And seeing her in tests is an exciting proposition, right? She's a young cricketer with, I'm hoping, a very big shelf life in cricket. So yeah, baby steps in test cricket is the way to go, I guess.
No, fair enough, of course. Baby steps in Test cricket will definitely be the way to go, especially if you are a women's cricketer in India, because there are no big steps happening right now. We can only hope that that does happen soon. We see enough. We see more of tests happening, that is. But all in all, to sort of summarize how this game went, it was India through and through. India won the first session. The second session was probably shared. You can argue that Australia sort of made their way back in. But yeah, at best it was 50-50. The third session, once again, we saw India's opener sort of get off to a flyer, ensure that India took away the spoils at least for the day, making it for very riveting view as an Indian fan. Movies के बारे में बहुत ही सोच रहा डंक की आज ही रिलीज हुआ है तो मूवी सोच के व्यू ही आ गया. My bad, stand corrected. But yeah, 98 for 1, 19 overs, lots to look forward to. But just one thing I need to know: your prediction tomorrow. How much do you think India is ending up at the end of the first innings?
Predictions have never been my cup of tea, but I think India will probably end at, say, 280. That's the optimistic Indian fan in me because I feel we can really make the most of it. We just need those partnerships and some big knocks. Considering we have Yastika and Jemima, you have Harmanpreet Kaur, you have Deepti Sharma, the batting is deep. It's just about belief and not getting overawed by the situation, right? We have such a good head coach. I'm pretty sure who's instilling that belief that, hey, you don't have to think it's Australia and just pack your bags and think this match is done. India is coming in with that big advantage of having won versus England with that kind of margin. So yeah, just expecting a score of like maybe 280 or so. Yeah.
And 280 is also that perfect in-between score. It's not like India's completely run away with the game, which probably as an India fan, yeah, we would want to see that happen. But even then, as a neutral, it would be great to sort of watch India get to 280. Australia is not entirely out of the game now. Australia would then have to sort of, force
Exactly.
their way back into the game, of course. Crick Crazy Nicks, of course, he cannot have. Is there any point in time when Crick Crazy Nicks cannot have, enough of cricket? Once again, he says, or rather asks, is it just me or nobody talks about Healy's captaincy enough? We did talk about how, we know her style of play. We know how she is. She's someone who sort of strictly believes in win at all costs. But do you think that sort of helps, for Australia's cause in terms of how they've gone about playing today, especially given those changes?
Yeah, actually, I mean, this is again a great question because when you look at Australia, Meg Lanning, right? She led Australia for such a long period of time that people just end up forgetting that Australia has a new captain now in Alyssa Healy. She's definitely a very underrated captain. She is the kind of personality who wears her heart on the sleeve. A day before the match started, we saw how the discussion was about the IPL auction and everything about that. But yes, we won't pick that up. We'll focus on Alyssa Healy, the character herself. And we've seen how she has that connect with each of her players. She's also the captain of UP Warriors at the Women's Premier League. I mean, of course the management sees potential in her. That's why they've made her the captain. And even her knowledge, I remember in a bunch of press conferences, and even I think after this auction, she's talking about how she wants to get to know these players, which is such a hallmark of the kind of captain and leader who wants to understand how their players are, right? So Alyssa Healy as captain was definitely a step in the right direction for Australia, and her shrewd strategies are going to be, unfolded as this Test match progresses as well. So yeah, exciting times.
Definitely, and I do remember, I don't know if it was a press conference or if it was just a pre-match interview where she did mention during the WPL about how her aim as a captain is to first get to know her team, get to know her players, get to know who everyone is and all of that, which is again only great signs as a captain. You spoke about how she is someone who loves to wear her heart in her sleeve and all of that. She actually, for some reason, again, not one for comparisons, not one for sort of stereotypes, but she did give me that tinge of Virat Kohli in terms of how she is very, very, very clear. She doesn't care. She knows where the line is and she doesn't mind pushing it, which is always fantastic to watch, especially in this format, because that's what this format is all about. It's about grinding there. It's about grit. It's about patience. Of course, yeah. And Gaurav, can we talk about how inaccurate the Aussie paces was? Bhai Sahab, I'm genuinely sort of, yeah, this is a problem I've never faced before. But yeah, how inaccurate Aussie paces were. We did talk about it in the beginning early on about how 12 overs 77. If you remove Lawrence Sheetal's 4 over spell, it was 8 overs for 65 runs, no wickets taken. They were very inaccurate. Something we spoke about, and something we also spoke about was how Elise Perry was frustrated. She was really taken aback by the kind of aggressive attack that the Indian batters took to them, which is when sort of Elisa Healy sort of went towards the spinners and ensured that the end of the day, towards the end of the day, that is, was only going to be spinners. So starting tomorrow,
And
of course, yeah. No,
And
no.
actually, also this point about how Australia, quite interestingly went ahead with Kim Garth, ahead of, say, a Megan Shute or even the likes of Darcy Brown, right? Which I thought was quite an interesting strategy because Darcy Brown has historically performed well against India, and at least the limited opportunities that we have seen. And Megan Shute, how can you, see her bomb the benches? So that was like a very brave call, which I think might cost Australia, because you're not playing these two. But I'm still, thinking that Kim Garth might come back stronger, right?
Fair enough. I mean, Neha has already sort of given her predictions in terms of what she's expecting from tomorrow. 280 is what she said. I'll also sort of say in the same area in terms of my predictions. I'll also say 270 to 280. So that Australia is not entirely out of the game. It'll be interesting for us also to. You'll be very. So it'll make for a very sort of close game, which is what I'm always up for. Any day close games over sort of one-sided encounters, even if it's in my favor, except only when it's RCB playing. Sorry, had to get that out. Had to get that out. It's sort of my spiel. But yeah, it's time to wrap this review up. Of course, tomorrow also we'll be back here at the same time, 8 p.m. sharp. We'll also have another guest coming in. Not a guest, I guess we'll also have to call her our expert because both of them will be here now. We'll be covering all the India. All of the India-Australia games, which will be happening during the show. So there's the Test match and the 3 ODIs and the 3 T20s. Lot of games, lot of players to talk about, a lot of fun to be had. So guys, make sure you do tune in back here and make sure you've hit the like button. I know I've not mentioned it enough during the review because that's how much we wanted to discuss about the game. Make sure you've hit the like button if you haven't already, and also make sure you've subscribed to us if you haven't already. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.